And we're back with another episode of Today and Tomorrow in Scottsdale. I'm Don Henniger. Joining me, as always, is my podcast partner and Scottsdale champion.
Yes.
Kevin Maxwell.
Hey, Don, how are you?
I'm good. It's holiday season.
Are you ready for the holidays?
Oh, I'm never ready for the holidays. Yeah. You know, maybe, man, that's a long story.
Yeah.
We still have, a couple of days. Actually, when this airs, it'll be the day before.
Did you decorate your house this year?
Oh, big time.
I haven't done mine lately.
Oh, yeah. We got strobe lights on there and stuff. Yeah.
Do you really?
Yeah, of course.
Way to do it up.
Gotta have fun. Yeah. We're going to have fun today.
Yeah.
In the spirit of the holidays, we got somebody who makes holidays festive around here all the time. And that's our guest is Teri Killgore. She's Scottsdale's Economic Development Director. Welcome, Teri.
Thank you so much.
Great to have Teri in town. She's been in Scottsdale, Kevin, now for almost a year.
Yeah.
She has nearly 20 years of municipal government service. She came here from Walnut Creek, California, where she was the assistant city manager. And before that, she was Chandler's downtown redevelopment manager for about 6 years, I guess, right?
Ooh,
Right.
There's some stories there, I bet.
There were.
Well, let's plug into some of this good stuff. So give us a little bit of your background, where you grew up, where you went to college, how you got into the career that you're in.
Sure.
What's the background on Teri Killgore?
It's fascinating. I grew up in Southern California, Huntington Beach area. Come from a long line of police officers and teachers and construction workers. So grew up learning the importance of working hard and working with your hands and really contributing to society. And so, interestingly, that led me to think, I don't want to do that for a living. And that's too hard of work. I want to go into finance or something for some reason I thought was easier, which it's not.
Right.
And so I went to college at the University of Washington up in Seattle. Got a little bit out of the hometown.
UW.
UW, go Dogs.
Yeah.
And then went to and did my master's in public administration at Syracuse. Because what I found was I really, after working for Dun & Bradstreet for a number of years, I realized I wanted a little more hands-on meaning to my work. And so did my degree in public administration and then was picked up by Deloitte Consulting originally for their public sector practice.
Yeah.
Worked in IT implementations, organizational development, and change leadership for 5 years all around the country, and just really kind of got worn out on travel. I was doing 100,000 miles a year.
No kidding.
And said, that's too much. I think I'm going to take a gap year before that was a thing. And in the interim, a friend of mine was working in a large city in California and said, hey, we're struggling to implement our development services software for building and engineering permitting. We know you know how to do this. Will you come help us? And I said, I really don't want to. I want to go travel or, sit by the beach. And so she talked me into it. And then I never left. I fell in love with it. I really enjoyed understanding how things get permitted, how they get approved by the council, the dialogue that happens around that. Yeah. And then I also got to work in the fire department while I was there and learned about the business side of that, ran HR and finance for them. Wow. And then,
so what city was this?
This was city of Fremont, California.
Okay, yeah.
And so then my husband got offered a job here in Arizona. So we came down here for his work originally. And I thought, I want to put my business experience to a little more use. And so I thought, but I love the public sector and economic development just seemed like the perfect match. And so started out City of Mesa as a program specialist working on the Fiesta District.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
That thing's coming on big time now.
Yeah, it is.
It's
That's
really
the old Fiesta Mall property, right?
This is supposed to be a Scottsdale show, but I want to ask questions about Chandler and I want to ask questions about Mesa too.
Bring it on.
Those are both interesting stuff, but I'll save it. Go ahead.
Bring it on.
And then was recruited away by Chandler to become their downtown redevelopment manager. And for 6 years, got to work on building the new city hall, redoing the streetscape on Arizona Avenue. And then decided, I want to get more into city management. And so went to City of San Jose, California. Thought I'd try my hand at a mega city and stayed there a couple years and then became an assistant city manager in Vallejo and then finally in Walnut Creek for the last 7 years.
Wow. That's a heck of a career path right there.
So everything you touch just seems to blossom. So I'm glad you're here now because I'm excited.
Well, thank you. I'm excited too.
Look at, Fiesta Mall, which is now undergoing massive
the Fiesta District, right?
Fiesta District now used to be Fiesta Mall.
It's cool.
Yes.
And I'm curious about Chandler because Chandler is downtown Chandler is amazing.
I almost don't recognize it when I go back. It's so exciting to see how it really has blossomed.
Yeah.
When we started the streetscape project, it started out as a new sewer line going down the middle of Arizona Avenue. And the plan was to further widen the traffic lanes. And the city manager at the time backed me when I came up with this plan to say, no, we need to widen the sidewalks. We need to slow traffic and we need to build a sense of place here. And so he gave me a couple $1 million to bolt onto the sewer project. And I think what we did was set downtown Chandler up for success by knitting the two sides of the street back together again.
It's very cool.
So you went from Chandler to Walnut Creek in San Jose area.
Yes.
And then came back to Scottsdale.
Yes.
So how did you end up coming back to Scottsdale?
Again, my husband talked me into it. His dad and his wife live down in Sun Lakes.
Oh, okay.
And so he really wanted to be close to family. And so ironically, I said I would only go back for a job with either Tempe or Scottsdale.
Oh, yes.
And so then when this manifested, he said, okay, now you got no argument.
Yeah,
so,
right.
It was time.
She's got the golden touch.
Yeah, she does. Seems like it.
The early roots of the Fiesta District in Mesa.
Yeah.
I used to live about a mile from there, so I'm pretty familiar with that whole area way back when I lived in Tempe. Magical for me that you were in the roots of the reemergence of downtown Chandler, right? With what's happening down there, which is amazing to see. So you're going to have to sprinkle some of that magic dust around Scottsdale.
I will do my very best. I think Scottsdale's already got some magic pixie dust in action. I just hope to bring what I can to the party. So
we're going to dig into why that may or may not happen, right?
Yeah.
That's why it's called work.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep, that's for sure. So before we get into too much of that, talk a little bit about your staff. I mean, how many people you have in your department? What's it mean to do economic development for the city? What's that look like?
Yeah. So there's 6 of us on the team. I've got a great group. Scott Cooper leads our business attraction work, where we're reaching out proactively to companies that are looking to locate and explain why Scottsdale is the best choice for them to bring their business to our community. And then Josh Utterback leads our business retention and expansion activities, where we go out and meet with current business owners to find out, what's keeping you from growing? How can we help you? Are you getting stuck in any processes that maybe we can help rescue you from? And then we've got marketing and research and admin support that help make the whole machine run. So economic development, it's a little confusing, because the state has the Department of Economic Security. Yeah. Different. We're not doing benefits. Mm-hmm. We are focused 100% on attracting and retaining high quality jobs for our community.
You're more like GPEC.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're very tightly aligned with GPEC. Yeah. I sit on their economic development directors team.
Okay, you probably did.
And we're in close contact with GPEC regularly.
Commerce Authority.
And ACA, yes. Right. They bring us lots of great leads from around the country.
Well, I was curious. We'll talk about Axon in a second, but there was a lot of state backing for the Axon project. I mean, Chris Camacho was here testifying from GPEC about how valuable that was from the state. And we had people, I think, here from the Commerce Authority, too, testifying on behalf of Axon when it went through the city council approval process. So that was cool, yeah. So what have you learned now that you've been back here since, March? What have you learned about Scottsdale, maybe that you didn't know before?
I've learned that things are similar but different than when we lived here before. 10 years ago, it felt like the world ended at Shea. The boom of development to the northern part of Scottsdale and even up into North Phoenix is stunning. I think what I've learned is Scottsdale is as strategic as it looks from a distance, but it's also as complex as it looks from a distance. They're one of the challenges of having a highly educated, successful community is you have a lot of people who are really smart about a lot of things, and they don't always come together when it comes to thinking about the future. And so at the end of the day, I think it lends itself to a more vibrant outcome, but sometimes the process gets a little messy.
We've seen some of that mess.
A little bit. Yeah.
Should we take care of that big subject and get the gorilla out of the room right now and talk about Axon
let me
for
ask
a second?
a little warm-up question for Teri. Now, you guys are out recruiting companies to come to Scottsdale and relocate to Scottsdale, set up shop in Scottsdale. Are there ever a time where you guys look at a potential lead or a company that maybe is not a good fit for us and just kind of ignore it or bypass it? Does that happen?
It does a lot, actually.
Does it really?
We've got some pretty high standards.
Okay.
So we have set a goal of recruiting jobs that are over $86,000 a year in average income.
Oh.
That's 135% higher than the state average.
Okay.
So we do that because we want people who come to the jobs here to be able to try and afford to live here, or at least live close by. And we want high quality jobs.
Yeah.
So we also don't go after, large heavy industrial things that take a lot of land, because we don't have a lot of free land left.
Like manufacturing, like an auto manufacturer, something like that would not be a good fit for us yet, right?
Correct. And it also, not just the land, but from a water perspective, we're very thoughtful about which industries we go after, knowing that water is a serious issue here in the desert, and we don't want to go out and, bring in folks that are going to impact the system too heavily.
So who's in the wheelhouse for us? Like tech, medical stuff, probably?
Yes.
Right? Finance?
Yes.
Banking?
Wow,
right.
We should hire you. You just about rattled off all our top industries.
And that was a good question I asked, wasn't it? That was. I just came out of the top of my head.
You pay attention. That's all there is to it. Right.
The only one you didn't mention, or two, and they're not really. One's not really an industry, but corporate headquarters are one of our targets, and then growing tourism. And so, while we're not the tourism department, we understand that tourism greatly benefits our economy. It's really an ecosystem, because if people come here to visit, it makes our sales pitch later of why they should come back and bring their business and live here that much easier.
Right.
We don't have to sell them on quality of life. They already know it exists here.
Yeah.
This is one of the reasons when people refer to Scottsdale as a suburb, I say, no. It's a vibrant city all by itself.
Oh, yeah.
It imports workers. It doesn't send, export workers like most suburbs do.
Very true.
I mean, it's a thriving city. And anybody, particularly those who are not all that hot about growth, they look at Scottsdale as being a little bedroom suburb community. Mm-hmm. It's a thriving city, man.
Oh, yeah.
There's no going back.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We did some just test balloons as we were traveling around the country, and said, okay, instead of saying we're Scottsdale outside of Phoenix, we tried out just saying, hi, we're Teri, Scott, Josh from Scottsdale, period. And it was stunning how many people said, oh, I've been to Scottsdale, or I have an aunt who lives there, or I went to a conference. And almost all the stories were positive about how much they enjoyed their experience here. And so, the days of having to tell people we're Scottsdale are long gone.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about Axon for a second.
I was going to say, I got it warmed up. So
get that one out of the way, because I know it's a tough one. I know there's a whole lot you can't say. Kevin and I could actually, maybe we will, talk a little bit about our thoughts about Axon. But when you have a case like Axon, you must be sitting back in your chair just being a little frustrated, because there's not a whole lot you can do. But what's your view when people ask you about Axon? What do you tell them?
Well, my view of Axon is from an economic development lens, which is they are incredibly high-paying, high-quality, tech-oriented jobs that are homegrown here in Arizona, been based in Scottsdale for a long time. They just got listed on the NASDAQ 100, which is in and of itself a huge accomplishment. And so the idea that we can live without those jobs is true, but it will hurt. We have 850 people currently working in our community in those jobs. The contract we negotiated brings at least 650 new. Axon's got even bigger dreams than that, if you listen to their talking points. But I think from an economic development perspective, we looked at it as we have a responsibility to bring to the city council for consideration a negotiated agreement that would give us a way to keep Axon in our community. Is it the perfect agreement? No agreement ever is, right? A good deal is the art of compromise. But it's the best that we were able to negotiate. And so, I didn't feel like, as the economic development director, it was my place, nor should that decision occur at my level of how much are we willing to do or not do to retain a key employer. And so I think it was the right thing for it to go before the council for a decision. And so, from here, there's public process laid out that is beyond my universe. But as an employer, I very much hope that we can retain Axon as an employer.
Well, I would say Kevin and I both are Axon supporters. And, when you look at what's happening right now with But the petition drive to get it onto the ballot and let voters decide, which the voter can still decide, but it's kind of for all the wrong reasons. And I just kind of look at that and say, sometimes with what's happening with the petitions, people don't really understand the issues, and it's part of that mis and disinformation era that we live in now, but understanding what the facts are.
Why would you not want a high-paying employer who employs a lot of people who are generating money into our economy? I mean,
good point.
That's what you search for. We look for that.
Totally right.
And then we got one here, and we're going to turn them away.
This is part of what makes a city successful. You grow and you evolve, and you bring in quality products and projects.
Well, they're already here. That's the thing, right?
I know, right?
Exactly. I mean, they don't have to go out and get them. They're already here.
Yeah.
They've been here for a long time.
Exactly right. Yeah, and they want to stay here.
Yeah,
for sure. And homegrown talent too.
Yeah.
So how do you, on a broader perspective, that gets toward the sort of political climate in Scottsdale with the growth, no growth contingents? How do you balance doing your job to recruit companies here with at the same time realizing what the pressures are in the community for a no growth kind of mindset? How does that sort of work out in your strategy?
It's less and less emergent for us. We have not very much commercial land left to build. In fact, interestingly, Scottsdale only has 1% of its land, its total land mass, designated for pure commercial use. There's another 6 or 7%, depending on which way you slice and dice the categories, that is mixed use. So typically that evolves into being ground floor, restaurant or retail, maybe some office. But traditionally, it tends to be more residential above. So if you go to the high end of that, let's say 8% of our land is designated as commercial land. That land has to kick out all of the jobs, all of the tax revenue that help keep our residential tax rates low, and creates that vibrancy that we all love. I think people forget that, having employers leads to quality restaurants, leads to quality retail. People need disposable income not to be able to go to these places, and we need them to be year round. A lot of tourism towns will tell you the hardest thing is when there's no strong base that sticks around in the off season. And I think that's one thing that Scottsdale truly excels at is we have a strong year round residential base who do have the disposable income to go out and make sure that our beloved restaurants, our beloved retailers stay in business in those off-season months. And so I think, if the desire is not to continue to build new, I think what it'll lead us to is some more strategic, thoughtful decision-making. And it's going to have us focusing a little bit more on what we do with existing commercial land. How do we fill in those vacancies that we have in some places? How do we work to attract companies into existing spaces versus really the bigger campus feel? The trade-off there is those are harder to attract these days with the change in work styles. And they typically these days are not as bringing as many jobs. So the good news is they bring high quality, high dollar jobs. And we've seen quite a few of those locates in the last 6 months where people are coming in saying, hey, we're coming in with these great jobs, but they're not the splashy numbers that we're used to with ASMs and Axons.
Less than 100, you mean? Or?
Yeah, if they come in around 100 and 150, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
So
it's a good score.
The ASM thing is really cool.
That's a big one. Yeah.
ASM's really cool.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about it.
Tell us a little bit about for our audience who doesn't know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
That was a big win for you guys recently, right?
It really was. So they're a company out of the Netherlands, and they, not here, but in other locations, they manufacture the equipment that basically prints on each layer of the silicone wafer the conduits, and they cringe when I describe this because I'm not a technical expert in this space.
Good, because we'll understand it that way.
Yeah.
So they print with different materials like metals and other ceramics onto each layer, and then those all get squished together to make the chips that run our phones and all our electronics. But what they're going to be doing at this location is, if you think about TSMC or Intel, every hour their factory line is down, it's at least $1 million in lost revenue for them. And so if they want to bring in new machinery, that machinery has to be ready to go, plug and play. The teams need to know how to operate it. and it needs to just be seamless. And so what they're doing at this new U.S. headquarters location coming in near Scottsdale Road in the 101 is they're going to be doing the research and development, continuing to refine these machines, working with experts from TSMC and Intel to get the formulas right for each of those layers, and then training the staff how to use it so that when it goes into the line, it's seamless. And so this is primarily PhD level jobs. The wages are just amazing.
Yeah, they're not making minimum wage over there.
They're not, and they're not manufacturing. I think that was some of the early misunderstanding. They are not making the machines there.
Right. So no chemicals.
Nominal. They're basically calibrating and running tests on these machines.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's an amazing project.
Yeah, it is.
It really is.
Feather in the cap for sure. That's why you could add Axon and ASM and put all those feathers in the cap. We got a pretty good looking cap coming out of North Scottsdale there.
I emailed Josh and said congratulations on that one.
Did you? That's good. Good move. Yeah.
Just a little shout out to Josh.
So one of the things that we hear from some of our friends in city council is it's, the Scottsdale's got a reputation. It's always sort of had a reputation about a tough place to get projects completed. And in a sense, that's good because we have high standards, but maybe there's a sense that maybe we've gone too far. And so if we have a reputation, which I think we do to some extent in the development community, about it's a tough place to get your project approved. How does that work for you in terms of posing a challenge for you? Do you have to overcome that? How do you talk about that if that comes up in your conversations with people?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would put the asterisk on it that this is my 7th community, and I've heard that complaint in all 7 communities.
Oh, okay.
And I think it's about relativity. It's what your expectation is of how simple something should be versus how it actually turns out. And then it also seems to tag on to when people start the clock in their head. And so sometimes, we get plans in the door and they're like, well, these should be done already. We're like, you literally just gave them to us. And so the clock is always on our side of the chess clock. People tend to forget about the time that elapsed on their side of the clock when they had design delays or staffing changes. Yeah. And so, we make sure to keep track of those things, not to, play point counterpoint, but to paint the full picture so that we're having a reasonable conversation. And to me, I think the way that's addressed is, and that's really the role of economic development is, hey, you've got a liaison here that you can call. If you get stuck, or if something's not going quite right, give us a ring. If you've got a big, complicated project coming in, give us a ring early. We can get some pre-meetings set up so the team understands what's being submitted and they're not just looking at plan sheets with no context. And those are the ones that seem to hit snags, is when it's not your normal garden variety TI. It's something a little more complicated. And so if we can have those pre-meetings and those early discussions with the applicant's design team, that really speeds things up on both sides of the fence. And so are we complex? Yes. Some of that is intentional. The role of government is to make sure things are fair and effective, which sometimes comes at a cost of efficiency. So we're not designed to run as fast as the private sector. We're designed to look at things and make sure that everybody had a chance to see it who needed to see it, that what gets built is safe and longstanding. And so, sometimes we can err a little too far on the safety side. And so we could be a little faster. But we are not meant to run at the speed of business, but we can run with them as best as we can to make sure that all of the goals are met. Some of what people that I've seen so far are having concern with are the many overlays we have on things. But those are council policies that have been adopted over the decades, defining how we want our community to look and function.
You're talking like design review board and stuff like that? Or
sometimes design review, but more so like there's a specific plan or a character overlay
like
plan.
The general plan.
The general plan has some guidelines. We've got, the scenic corridors. We've got natural landscape protections. And so some of those are new to people if they've not developed in Scottsdale before. And so that feels like extra to them. But it's also what helps keep our community beautiful and at a high caliber.
That
so
makes sense.
There's trade-offs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, former Mayor Lane prided himself on developing what he called the healthcare corridor. Is that still a thing? Is that still something you promote, or is that just sort of gone, a little less attention on that now? Or?
It's gone a little less attention, I think, with Phoenix has really ramped up their med campus to the west of us. And so it didn't quite gel the way we had hoped. Mm-hmm. And so we still have an amazing medical presence. Our list of employers in that space is impressive. And so we're known for it. We still promote the industry. We still work with the industry quite closely. But the corridor just didn't quite come to be the way I think we had hoped.
This kind of was my impression. We haven't heard a lot of conversation about that.
That's a good point. I heard, I heard about that.
It was a big thing like 5 or 6 years ago when Lane was still in office.
Yeah. The Chamber of Commerce should have a series about that.
I went way back to my days at the Business Journal. We did partnership programs with the city of Scottsdale for the healthcare corridor time. But, it was 10 years ago.
Yeah. Who's the biggest employer right now? Is it Vanguard or CVS or?
I'm pausing because I can see we have the graphic up in our lobby.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, oh no, who's at the top?
Those are probably top 5, right? I'm sure.
Probably
yeah, those are all top 5. Yeah.
Honor Health's got to be
Honor Health is up there.
Health, yeah.
Vanguard is up there. Axon is up there. Mm-hmm. The school districts are up there.
That's right. Yeah.
The city's probably up there.
City is up there, and I'm forgetting somebody. I apologize.
That's a handful. That's a good handful for sure.
Is JDA still a big employer? JDA Software, they used to be pretty big. I'm not sure.
I haven't heard that name mentioned recently.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Maybe they changed names.
Yeah, maybe they changed the name or changed hands or something. Anyway, okay. Anyway.
What do you worry about, in terms of things that you can maybe not control? And, sometimes it's the national economy or it could be a COVID pandemic or whatever. What kind of things do you worry about and to the point where you can actually plan a little bit about, the what ifs? What kind of things keep you up at night when you think about it that way?
Great question. Always worried about recession, right? Because we don't control that. We're just along for the ride. I do worry and keep an eye on our reputation in the marketplace. We've been blessed that even though we have a little bit of a reputation for running slow, we're still a high value enough destination for business that we overcome that. But that can flip out of balance. And so keeping an eye on that. And I do worry about our commercial land. I think that, the hard part is we have the need for housing in some way, shape, or form. But because we have so little commercial land, I worry that we need to be really strategic with it and not just let it kind of go to whatever the crisis thinking of the day is.
Right.
I also worry that we overbuild in product types. I mean, I remember the, Walgreens and Rite Aid and CVS on every single corner.
Sure.
And then for a while it was banks. And some of those buildings get so tailored to their specific needs. They're very hard to repurpose.
Yeah.
And so, watching trends to make sure we're not hopefully going too much in a super trendy direction that we might regret later.
Yeah. Those are legitimate concerns.
How can you change gears on that, though? If you did see that we were trending too far in a particular segment like that, is there anything you can do? Do you have any tools in your tool belt for that?
Not a lot. Most of our ability is to kind of ring the bell and make others aware of it.
Okay.
To say, hey, it looks like we're trending a little far this direction. There's still private property rights, which we respect. And so we can't control everything, but sometimes calling the question leads to folks looking up and noticing, oh yeah, maybe we are kind of seeing too much of one product. Our friends in the financial sector have a lot of influence in that. And so having those dialogues with them of, hey, we might be getting oversaturated in a specific category may or may not influence things, but at least we try.
I bet you're competing with our neighboring communities like Mesa and Phoenix probably on a regular basis. I would imagine that does the Scottsdale cachet come into play? I mean, do people they focus on Scottsdale because they want to be here? I bet you if you did lose something to Mesa, they probably have an advantage on land. Probably, I would imagine.
Yes, they have an affordability advantage. Tempe has a little bit more of an urban feel than we do. And so what we're seeing is, in some ways it's not a bad thing. The critique of Scottsdale as a market is, your available product is too expensive. So it hurts us when we talk about startups. We've tried to counterbalance that with, more industrious, more co-working space like where we're sitting today, as well as SkySong partnership with ASU. So there are spaces for startups, but I don't think people naturally think of us as a place to start up. But we have one of the highest rates of startups in our business community in all of the Phoenix Metro.
Oh, that's great.
So we're a great place to start a new business. You got to get past the mentality of it's all too expensive or you have to be an established business already.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, so switching gears a little bit. So what do you do in your downtime? What do you do for fun?
Right now I'm still unpacking my house. I don't like this part where you have to hang all the pictures. I'm really bad at it. So I need to just hire help. Doing that, we like to get outdoors, go hiking. We like to travel a lot. And so we travel and try to eat, whether locally or, around the country or around the world, we like to get out and see how other people live. And I think, going back to downtown Chandler, that project was a collection of many different ideas I borrowed from other communities all around the country and world. And so trying to bring some of the best of, and then making sure it's reflective of the spirit of the place. But trying to borrow ideas, I think, is how public sector gets better.
So when you go traveling, you're looking at cities with a bit of a different eye than we might be.
Yes.
So how they do things, how things are positioned, how they look, that kind of deal.
My
right?
husband laughs at me.
I was going to say, I bet that's a conversation.
I have a whole file full of trash cans I like, public benches I like, bus stops I like. He's like, are we seriously taking another picture of like a sewer lid? Like, come on.
Those are your vacation pictures. They'd be pretty good trash cans and dumpsters.
Everybody else has the cathedral. I'm like, oh, look at that.
Look at that dumpster over there. I was wondering what's
this paving technique is great.
Look at egress into that waterway.
Yes, exactly.
That is funny. Yeah. Well, we're in the holiday season now, too. Yes. And this is going to come out, the day before, day or two before Christmas and the holidays. And what are you doing for the holidays?
Quiet. We hosted Thanksgiving and it was a lot. And so my daughter comes back from college tonight. So it's just going to be my husband, my daughter, and I.
Where's she go to school?
Keeping it quiet. Syracuse.
Oh, look at that.
I'm a Penn State grad, so we're back in the same neck of the woods.
Yeah.
How has she enjoyed a little bit of the winter they've had back there so far?
It's funny.
She's near Erie, and that's been getting slammed.
Geared her up for winter. We had her ready to cross the tundra. And she didn't even use the snow gear the first year. They had such a light winter. They never had more than a foot of snow on the ground.
Right.
This year they got tagged a little bit more, but still nothing like when I was in grad school. So they don't have the 4 and 5 feet of snow sitting around.
Like they got in Erie, which is a little bit to the west of Syracuse.
Buffalo got creamed, right?
Yeah.
Buffalo. Oof.
Oh yeah, Buffalo and Erie, that area.
Yeah.
Syracuse is a little bit further east than that, so it's not quite in that same snow belt.
They used to be though,
and
so there's definitely kind of a new shift where they're a little sheltered.
How close is Syracuse to the water? Is there any major body of water there?
No, I don't believe there is. No.
They're south, about an hour south of Lake Onondaga.
Okay.
Yeah. But not any of the Great Lakes.
Yeah. That's what really gets Buffalo, right?
Lake Erie.
Yes. They're right on the water.
Yeah, for sure. What are you doing for the holidays, Kevin?
Nothing.
Quiet.
Watching football.
Downtown, there's going to be a lot of that.
Watching a lot of good football. I'm looking forward to this year.
It's going to be a lot of good playoff action coming up.
How your Lions going to do?
Well, we're going to, by the time we air this, we'll know.
Yeah.
And my other team, my pro team's in the playoffs, even though
that's right.
So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
Who's
Christmas, the Steelers, the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh, I live
Christmas
in
Day,
Pittsburgh.
we're playing your guy, Kansas City on Christmas Day.
That's right. They are.
Nice.
That's right.
You spent time in Pittsburgh?
I did. When I started with Deloitte, their public sector practice was based out of Pittsburgh. So I lived there for 3 years.
Yeah. Where did you live when you were back there?
Green Tree.
Oh, I grew up in Mount Lebanon, right next door.
Oh, yeah. Very nice.
Yeah.
Very
Small
nice.
world for sure.
There you go.
It is.
Well, we wish you the happiest of holidays. We thank you for all the good work that you're doing for our city. It's important work. It's tough work, but we're glad you're in the saddle making it all happen.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not just me. There's a whole team working hard to bring in good projects for consideration, and we'll keep doing the work.
Well, I'm glad the team has a good leader. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And we wish all of our listeners a happy holiday season, a safe holiday season. We're going to be off for a couple of weeks, but we're going to be back after the first of the year. Can you believe it'll be 2025?
Yeah, right. We got some good guests coming up too.
We got a ton of good guests coming up. This is like almost our 150th episode. Wow. And we've got a list of guests that'll just go out the door.
Keep on going.
So we're going to be rocking and rolling all through 2025. But happy holidays to everybody. Thanks for listening. We'll be back in the new year with another edition of Today and Tomorrow in Scottsdale.